In the same vein as small-scale British luxury car makers like Bristol, Gordon-Keeble was among the most distinctive, but at the same time most short-lived, as this prestige mark collapsed before it had even started, although its legacy as one of the crispest motoring designs and styles still reverberates today, as nearly every one of the 100 cars produced during its fleeting run continue to exist. The Gordon-Keeble Company traces its roots back to one of the founders of the preceding Peerless Company, John Gordon, the Peerless firm being based out of a factory in Slough, west of London, and constructed alloy-bodied sports saloons between 1957 and 1960, with approximately 325 units built when it ceased trading. At the time of the Peerless Company's collapse, Gordon, together with designer Jim Keeble, was in the process of developing a new model which would marry the Peerless tubular frame chassis, of which he had purchased the building rights, to a bespoke luxury body designed to follow the rapidly emerging trend for Grand Tourers during the early 1960s, including contemporaries such as the Aston Martin DB4 and the Maserati 3500 GT. As was the general basis of Grand Tourers, the inspiration for Gordon was to develop a car which incorporated a mixture of sublime styling and power, the go-to locations for these traits being Italy for the external design and America for the engine, Italian carrozzerias having made a name for themselves in the world of motoring for delivering among the most beautiful cars ever created, while the United States hosted a slew of powerful but reliable small-block V8 engines that could neatly provide the performance where necessary. From the start, Gordon had envisaged an American V8 being installed into their prospective model, the inspiration coming from his Peerless days, as at the request of US Air Force pilot Rick Nielsen, he had replaced the normal 1.9-litre straight-four Triumph TR3 engine in one car with a 4.6-litre small-block V8 from the first-generation Chevrolet Corvette, with Gordon and Keeble considering the use of a 3.5-litre Buick V8 from the Oldsmobile Cutlass, the same power unit that would later become the famous Rover V8 of the late 1960s. However, as development of the car progressed, the two men opted instead for a power unit from Chevrolet, as this had been proven to work with their unique V8 Peerless, fitting the prototype with a 4.6-litre Corvette engine, while the chassis consisted of an independent suspension with two unequal-length triangular wishbones at the front and a Dion axle with four trailing arms at the rear, complemented by disc brakes on all wheels. For the styling, Gordon and Keeble turned to the Carrozzeria Bertoni of Turin, choosing specifically a rising star in the automotive world, designer Giorgetto Giugiaro, who had begun his career with Fiat in 1955 at the age of 17, and by 1960 had developed such classics as the Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta short-wheelbase Speciale, the Alfa Romeo 2000 Sprint and 115 and 105 series coupes, and the BMW 3200 CS. This mixture of American power and Giugiaro styling was a match made in heaven, the result of the stylist's craftsmanship being an elegant coupe with four 5-inch round headlights and small tail fins with integrated tail lights, the prototype being created from sheet steel in just 27 days, although later, for cost reasons, production cars would be made from fiberglass reinforced plastic, requiring the assistance of coach builder Williams and Pritchard Limited of Edmonton, London. The finalized Gordon GT made its official debut at the 1960 Geneva Motor Show on the Bertoni stand, wooing potential customers with its superb Italian looks, followed by superb reviews by members of the automotive press when they were allowed the opportunity for a test drive, the 300-horsepower Corvette engine providing a 0-60 time of 5.9 seconds and a top speed of 147 miles an hour, easily outperforming the rival Aston Martin DB4 with its 0-60 time of 7.3 seconds and top speed of 140 miles an hour. After its successful launch in Geneva, the Gordon GT was shipped to Detroit in order to undergo a review by the Chevrolet Company board, even being driven by chief engineer Ed Cole and joint developer of the Corvette Zora Duntov, the American executives being so impressed in the car's ability to marry Corvette power and Italian styling that they signed a contract to supply Gordon with 1,000 Corvette engines and gearbox units per year, and would be allowed to sell the car via Chevy dealerships once production got underway. One of the more iconic traits to the Gordon-Keeble mark was its symbolic, though somewhat antithetical, brown tortoise against a yellow background logo. The reason, as explained by Jim Keeble himself, being due to an accidental circumstance that indirectly involved the Great Train Robbery of 1963. According to Keeble, during a photography session to demonstrate the luggage capacity of the car, a local resident witnessed them loading and unloading several suitcases from the model and promptly called the police, believing them to have been involved in the train robbery, thus leading to the arrival of law enforcement and a lengthy investigation and discussion. While this was going on, a tortoise was noticed walking across the ground in front of the car, and Keeble opted, as a joke, to pick it up and place it on the bonnet for a series of photos, whereupon it relieved itself and stripped the paint. In the end, it wouldn't be until 4 years after the car's successful launch that assembly of the customer models would start, which, rather than taking place at the former Peerless factory in Slough, began in earnest within the former aircraft factory on the grounds of Eastleigh Airport near Southampton, at a rate of approximately 3 cars per week. For the production models, the original Chevy 4.6-litre engine, which had been discontinued in 1961, was replaced by a 5.4-litre version for the customer units, while attempts to introduce rack and pinion steering were stymied by a lack of supply, requiring the use of a steering box system provided by the Ad West company. Unfortunately, in early 1965, problems rapidly arose due to trouble at component suppliers, most notably strike action at the Ad West company, which meant the firm had no access to the steering box systems essential for the cars, and with production of Gordon-Keeble models grinding to a complete halt, the company collapsed into bankruptcy within weeks due to the overwhelming negative cash flow, with only 90 examples built before assembly ended, with the cars being sold at a price tag of £2,798 or £57,900 in 2025. Following the firm's collapse, in the spring of 1965, its remaining assets were purchased at bankruptcy auction by businessmen Geoffrey West and Harold Smith, whose financial input helped to revive the company under a new name called Keeble Cars Limited, who restarted production in order to deliver the backlog of unfinished models. This was followed by the sale of another 9 brand new orders on top of the 90 already produced, one being built at Eastleigh Airport, while the other 8 were assembled at a new factory in Sholing near Southampton due to redevelopment of the airport grounds, the final examples of the original run, chassis number 98, being output in the summer of 1966, followed by one further unit, chassis number 99, in 1967. During that same year, hope for a possible return of the Gordon-Keeble mark came when American glue tycoon John DeBruyne bought the production rights and presented 2 of the Keeble GTs at the New York Auto Show to try and drum up support for a potential restart of production in the United States. Sadly, with minimal interest garnered for a little-known, decade-old model in a market now fully saturated with other Grand Tourers, De Bruyne's ambitions were never realized, and with no hope of returning the car to production on a widespread scale, one final example, chassis number 100, was put together in a private workshop using leftover spare parts in 1971, the very last Keeble GT ever built. Happily though, enthusiasm for this rare machine meant that, in 1969, a specialist workshop was established in Brackley, Northamptonshire, in order to repair these cars. While as of 2014, the 50th anniversary of the car's entry into sales, 95 of the original 100 Keeble GTs are known to still be in existence, including the prototype, a clear illustration of the devotion car enthusiasts across the world have to what could have potentially been a major rival to the likes of Aston Martin and Jaguar.